Good day, and good afternoon. Well, I've been slowing down a tad, but I'm going to put up an afternoon. Love is when you keep going, no matter how much you get hurt. Love is when you don't think of yourself. Love is when you're not inconvenienced. Love is when the only thing that matters is making others happy. When you think about yourself, you have to see that humanity is kind of like those 3 rules of the robot. Never hurt a human being. Do what is needed to help the human being. Never put yourself in a position where your existence will be ended. Now, your existence to be ended, that's a, pretty high bar. Love is when you empathize with the other and try to be that good example for the other. Love is friendship. Love has nothing really to do with procreation. Fugnuts, you know what hippie means? Hippie was a 1950s term for someone who shot heroin in their hip. And back in the day, when I was a flower child, and we believed in love, Spiro T. Agnew, Nixon's vice president, who was basically a thug, convicted felon, but he knew how to twist a turn of a term. And so he took the flower child and turned it into a stinking hippie. So that's why you shouldn't trust a hippie, because a hippie basically is an addictive personality, shooting heroin in their hip. This is true. And it is kind of going to the fact of where we are now. We are at a really, really crossroad point of time where we are at that open window of opportunity where we can, break the chain of oppression, of addiction, of illusion, and we can stand up and stretch our persona out to our conscious free will and love unconditionally with love's co-creation. It's not about how you look, how much you weigh, what your career is, how much money you have. All those are illusions. It's how you can care about your fellow man. You can be there for your friend, no matter how trying your friend is, no matter how self-centered your friend is, no matter how they can't empathize your friend is, it doesn't matter. You're their friend. You're there to help. But you have to use the 3 rules. Doctor, do no harm. Only engage if the outcome is a positive one. Only engage if you can learn something from it. And in friendship, that's what it's about. Those 3 things. Not being the hero, not being Mr. Fix-It, because how do you know how to fix it, right? The best you can do is be a good example. Be there for your friend. And not do things that continue the spiral down. Don't involve yourself if that will bring the person to a negative end. A friend is there, is the friend in need, is the friend indeed. Not the enabler, not the one who brings the person down, not the one who, there's a term in German called Freudenschade, getting pleasure out of the misery of another. And our culture is based on that. Our comedy, our movies, pretty much our politics, our finance, our school. It's all about taking whatever you feel bad about yourself and projecting it on someone else and making fun of them so you can feel better. And all that does is destroy your soul. You don't talk falsely, You travel with humility and grace and being awake. Being awake. What is love? Baby, don't hurt me. Baby, don't hurt me no more. So that is a pop song lyric that is used to hook the listener. And that's the Luciferian way of life, or this is all a Luciferian illusion. Every single bit of this universe, not just our planet, the universe. No, I'm in a very good mood. I'm in the sunlight. I'm in the library. I've been reading, but I've been thinking about where we are as a race. And I keep saying that we're on this great point of opportunity. And if we waste it, the last time this opportunity was at hand in this way was 25 or 3,000 years ago, and we wasted it. We branded that opportunity into a mass consumption. And we had the Roman Empire rise out of the dust and become the Holy Roman Empire. And it turned that love into a product called religion, Christian religion, which was a kind of off-branding of Judaism. And then Islam was an off-branding of that. Now, within the Indian religion, of Hinduism and the Orient's Buddhism, those were great opportunities because those were, again, re-edification of that sense of love for the other, not for self. Because self-love, self-adoration is basically the mirrored image of Lucifer's illusion. Now, love of another is the essence of co-creation. Now, adoration of another, that's a false god. And there's only one creator, and that is love's co-creation with us, the artist in the first person, the savage of love's co-creation. And, I never feel unhappy, ever. Now, I could, feel sore, like right now. My jaw hurts a little bit, but it feels better than it did last Tuesday when they ripped the teeth out, right? I'm saying my jaw feels 30 to 40% better than it did last Tuesday. I couldn't even talk. So, everything is relative, right? But I never get disappointed because I don't put out expectations. I don't have any expectations because I don't believe in anything. All I have is faith in love's co-creation because I know all the rest of this is an illusion, right? And I'm not scared of going to heaven or hell because heaven and hell are right here. You don't got to go nowhere. Just observe. And being awake gives you the opportunity to navigate to those places towards heaven or to hell. Just like Daffy Duck, he's got an angel on one shoulder and a devil on the other. And at every nanosecond, he's got that point to choose, right? If we were to love all our relations, we would puncture the bubble of Luciferian illusion of this non-real universe. But people are so stuck in their illusion. They want to be the rock star. They want to be the famous movie star, the A-lister. They want to be rich. They want $1 million, That really make you happy? Really? I don't think so. There's pushing towards 300 of the cadre, right? Just like the 300 of the Greeks that held the Persian Empire at bay, right? 300 guys held more than 500,000 soldiers because of their faith in each other, their love of each other, and not some scatological, infantile joke about gayness or anal this or anal that. No, those body parts are just that, No, the 300 did great. They kept, the friggin' Persian Empire at bay while the rest of the Greek cities got themselves together. And they led as a good example, They led by example. But, if you die serving love's co-creation, there's no better way to go out. What do you want? Be an old fart? Dying in your... I worked in palliative care, taking care of old folks. And it's not pretty. And it's not quick. They go slow, It usually takes a year or 2 or 3 or 4 for people to finally end. And when they end, it's It's like the body is a machine, so different components. Man, if you ever want to see something really disgusting, is be with someone who dies and they have the death rattle. That's when their lungs fill up with water, and you can hear them gurgle from their lungs, not in their throat, their lungs. And they basically drowned, and it takes hours. And as they die, they lose the different component parts of their, so that, their lungs full of water. So they basically have that a situation where they die of not drowning, but their blood gets thinned out to the point where the brain barrier kind of gets let down, and all the toxins of the dying body goes into the brain, and they kind of go nuts. I mean, they go blind. They can, they see and hear things that they're long dead relatives, and they're not ghosts. It's just the ghost in the machine. And so I spent with my parents, 28 years, but in that hospital job I had, I spent 8 months. And no one ever wanted to be with those people when they were dying. And I would go to their side and stay with them and shepherd them to the other side. And that is, that is friendship. And most of those people, I didn't know them. Most of the people who worked in the hospital just treated them like vegetables. Pruned them, stuck them with needles, did what the chart said. I stayed, talked. And because it made everyone else's job easier, people let me do that. And the head administrator, not the owners, not the boss, but the guy who was there, he got into the business because of empathy, because of his mother, And when he saw what I did, he gave me his full support. And so I was able to do it. But the corporate, the HMO side of it, I didn't like it, because they liked to have people die on schedule. And I didn't often have that happen. Yep, starved to death. And the corporate world is doing that to the world through processed food. Where I live in the deep green, I live in a 200 square mile patch of uber mountain poverty. And these people are eating off their food stamps, and they get just totally processed food. They don't get vegetables. And they have boxes and boxes and boxes of mac and cheese, and that's all they eat. And they're starved to death while being obese. It's very interesting. Right. You stayed with your father, and he basically truly appreciated that. And you got a great gift of getting to know your father rather than know the myth of your father. Most children only know the myth of their children. What daddy was crazy, daddy was this, daddy was mean, daddy was vicious. Oh, daddy was so good, he was like a saint. Oh, those were all myths. Oh, no. And so it's going to be interesting to see us interface with AI. Yes, isn't that interesting? I had that experience at that hospital. I must have shepherded, been with, I don't know, let's say, 2 people a week for, let's say, 40 weeks, so 80 people, give or take. And my house smelled of roses and lilac. And there were no roses and lilac trees. I mean, really, people would come. I would have these dinner parties once or twice a month. And all of the intelligentsia and the art world of Asheville, North Carolina would come to these dinner parties. And it would always smell like roses and lilac. And people would always go, wow, what is that smell? That smells so beautiful. And I would say it's the smell of death. Because death is beautiful. Right? Because you get to see who and what you are. You see that line between light and dark, shadow and clarity. Death brings it all into perspective. So that's why we shouldn't be scared of death, you know. Buddha said that dying was slipping out of a tight slipper. No big deal. And I've died 6 times, so I'm here to tell you that it's not a big deal. You know, 6 times in this body. Yes, real flowers. And, Uncle, so what did that make you feel like? You know? How did that experience, what did it do to you? What it has left you with? Grateful. Yep. And most people are scared of death. When my mother died, my sisters and father didn't want to be there. But I stayed with her the whole time. And my father wanted to bring her body back to Long Island to put it in the ground, but it was going to cost $30,000. But if they, cremated her in Florida, and they got an urn, it would cost them $600. So at first she said, oh no, we got to bring her body back. Oh, it's her body, what's important? And then they told him the difference in cost, and he said, oh, cremate her. And so Florida law states that someone in the family has to be there when the body gets cremated. It has to sign the paper saying, yeah, this is so-and-so, right? And my dad didn't want to do it. My sister didn't want to do it, so I went down. And I went to Publix, and I bought all the foods that my mother liked. And I brought a picnic basket and flowers. She loved flowers. I brought a ton of flowers. And I said to the lady there, do you have any vases? And she said, yeah, we got vases. I said, can I have a few of them, like maybe 5? And I put them around the empty vases, put water in them. And I said, you got scissors? And I clipped the flowers with my mother right there. She was like, they laid her out really nice. She looked great. She had a really nice dress on, and her makeup was great. My mom would be so happy the way she looked. And I talked to her, and I had a last meal with her, and I made a shaker of Manhattans, which was her favorite cocktail, and I smoked a couple of cigarettes in there, even though it said you weren't supposed to. But nobody came running in and telling me not to smoke. And when I came out, the whole staff was crying because they said that was the most amazing, sending someone off that, they do it all the day long, and they'd never seen anything like that. And all the stories I told my mom and all the things I thanked her for. Are we back? Somebody knocked us off. Someone doesn't like to have anyone talk. Yep. What it's like to love someone. Right? And, my mom had, you know, she ruled the world. She was a triple Capricorn, and my dad was a triple Virgo. He was right about everything. So I took care of them the last 20 years of their life, and I gave them a little rule. I said, listen, you guys aren't evil. You're not terrible. You're human beings. There's a good side to you and a bad side. When you are in your good side, I'll be glad to be with you. When you're in your bad side, I won't be there. Period. My dad said, what if I fall down the staircase? I said, well, you better be in your good mood because I'm not showing up unless you are. And so they were. So the last, so I was with them 20, I thought they would die pretty quick. They were in their late 70s, but I took such good care of them. They lived another 28 years. So, and that we had a good time. And again, I did no harm. I always brought a good outcome, and I learned a lot. I learned a lot about my parents because my dad talked to me. He really had nobody to talk to, and my mom stopped even listening. So I was always there for my dad, and my mom was always there because all she wanted to do the last years of her life is to cut flowers and put them in a vase and put them on. I had these like little pedestals in front of the window she would look out, and behind that, outside was a pond, the pond of the pebble, and it would shimmer, and she would just look at the flowers and how the light would shimmer on the flowers. And I told her about how that was just like the sunroom that they put me in when I was brought home from the hospital at birth. And my mom always talked to me. She was always there when I was talking to her. But my dad, it was like she unplugged. They had been married 78 years. My mom lived to be 103, my dad 98. And I got to live the last, almost 30 years of their life with them. And in a very good experience. Not one that was, I hated every minute of it. No, And there were moments when they weren't at their best and I still hung out with them because I could learn something, I could do no harm, and I could bring it to a positive outcome, right? Like the last 8 months of my mother's life. I stuck around. That was, the best. Because my dad wanted some kind of raison d'etre and my mom wouldn't give it to him. And they just kind of got to points where they'd argue. In about 3 weeks, and my mom died, and then they brought her back. And she had came up, and then, 6 months later, she died. And that's a thing that occurs a good deal in old people's deaths. And so she, she kind of switched back to what she was when she was in her 20s and 30s, and she ran a hospital, and she would do the night shift. She ran the whole Megillah at the night shift. And she ran the nursing hospital. This was Roosevelt Hospital. And she had her own little empire of nurses. Anyway, she kind of went back into that mode. And the state of Florida, once you come out of the hospital, you got to own a hospice. You got to have somebody there all the time. And the companies just rip people off. And so my dad, as soon as I showed up, got rid of them. And then, a sheriff and a social worker like Nurse Ratchet showed up and wanted to arrest me for parental abuse. I mean, I had only been there 6 hours. And the policeman, who was the guy of the authority, kind of realized what happened because my dad was being a real dick. I'll do what I want, my house, but they were going to arrest me. Anyway, so, the sheriff took me out and said, listen, I see what's going on. You get some people to watch after your mom and just keep me in the loop, and it's all good. I'll take this Nurse Ratchet away, which they did. And then we put a ad in the paper. And this was right in '08 when everything crashed. And there were all these people who had jobs that we got 16 bucks an hour. Now they didn't. And so we had about 50 people show up for the interview. And my dad really loved torturing them and then offering them $3 an hour, right? And most of the people were jerks, so I didn't want most of them. But there were three, four, five people who were like, really, okay, those are the people who need to take care of mom. So there were four. One was when I said, listen, I'll get you more money. And she was like so pissed off with my dad. It was obvious that wasn't going to work. But the other four were unbelievably empathetic people and understood what it was. And so I said, listen, I'll get you as close to 16 bucks as I can, but I need somebody to take care of my mom, and I need somebody to take care of my dad. And there was this black lady. Her name was Timothy. Her father had 5 daughters before him, and then she came. And so he wanted a son so bad, he just named her Timothy. And my father said, oh, we can't hire her. She's black. I said, what's wrong with her? I said, oh, they smell funny. I said, what are you talking about? Oh, no, it's not. I said, and she's standing right there listening to my father say all this stuff, why they can't hire a black person. And so I said, Dad, this woman can really cook. So let her cook a meal tonight. It's almost dinner. Let her just look in the refrigerator. And she made beef Wellington from the stuff that was just in the fridge. And amazing vegetables and an amazing dessert. And that was it. My dad said, okay, yeah, she can work. As long as she works the night shift, makes dinner and then takes care of your mom. And what we did was we moved my mom out of their bedroom and put her in a guest bed, got a hospital bed and put her in there. And she would sleep all day. And then at night, she would wake up around 5 o'clock. She'd come out, she would have flower. I would get her flowers to put in the vases. She'd sit at her chair and look at the light glimmer. And then she would go out and help Timothy make dinner, mostly by just being there. They'd have dinner, we'd have really nice dinner. My dad would go and watch television, and my mom would play cards all night long. Like from, after dinner and everything cleaned up about 7 o'clock, from 7 o'clock to 7 in the morning, they would pay, and Timothy would bake her cookies and give her, a thing that tasted like a Manhattan, that it didn't have any alcohol, and they would have just a great night all along, and then my mom would go to sleep, and that would be great. And she got better and better, and she was rested and had no real, it was like my parents were like ships in the night. And one night, though, my father decided he was just going to, Wilma, why don't you, you're just treating me so blah, 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 being like the whiny bitch he was. And that's what my mother said, stop being a whiny bitch. That's why I don't talk to you. You say you have the same 10 stories for the last friggin' 90 years. I don't want to hear it anymore. You say the same crap over and over and over. And the only books you read are, adventure stories, that are like hollow and two-dimensional, and they reflect who you, and she just took them apart. And my father started weeping, right? And my mother, stopped being such a, expletive, and she walked out. And my father was, I said, Dad, I don't know why you do this. You do this all the time. You upset mom, you get in a big argument, and then you weep. Tomorrow she's going to wake up, she won't remember this. So be your better self. Don't go there. Don't keep picking at the scab. How much, you've been blessed with, this extra time with mom who you love. Just be your better self. And he was. The next 4 weeks, he was his better self. And she responded in being sweet and nice to him. So the last 4 weeks of her life, before she had that night when she died, she was in good health. They would take little slow walks around. They lived in a gated community that was very pretty. And she had a nice last 4 weeks, and so did he. And so she died. And, we brought her back to Long Island, had that ceremony, and then I had to bring my dad back to Florida. And I was taking care of him. And about 2 weeks after, and my dad had a thing wrong with him. His blood would not do what it's, when I lead you into state and I show the prana coming into your blood and then I energize your mitochondria. Well, that didn't happen to my dad. So every month he was like Barlos Karloff. He had to get all his blood drained, and they didn't didn't put him through a kidney machine or dialysis or any of that. They just gave him brand new spanking young people blood, and he'd be good to go, And he would, after getting that transfusion, he would have 3 weeks away. He could run around the house 20 times. Then he would kind of slow down to the point where he'd have to go and get all of his old blood taken out and all new blood put in. And so I would take him there and sit there for hours. So it would take hours for the blood to go in and the blood to be taken out. And so that was a time where he told me loads of stories and told me things that he never told anybody else. And so about 3 weeks after we had been back from putting my mom in the ground, I come in and he has his service revolver, his 45 from his military. He kept his military stuff up in this closet. And he had his military revolver, and he, had, a couple of clips that had bullets in them. And I walk in, he's got the gun in his hand, and he's tapping the gun. And I go, "What are you doing with that?" He goes, "Do you think God would be angry at me if I killed myself? I'm just so lonely. I can't be here without your mother." And I said, "Well, Dad, first of all, the only way you can do it successfully is put that barrel in your mouth and blow the back of your head off. And that's going to be really messy, and I will have to clean that up. I will have to get the cops here. I will have to do this. I will have to do that, right? And God doesn't give a flaming fuck about you, Dad. Couldn't give a shit, right? So I would suggest you don't blow your brains out, right? So this is what you need to do. You need to go back to New Jersey and be with Mary, my older sister, and let her take care. And don't get that procedure. Don't get your blood changed. And you'll be dead in 40 days, period. And now we're heading towards that place where you need to get your blood transferred. Let's do that. And that'll be the last time, period. And I'll put you on an airplane. I don't want to go on an airplane. You got to drive me. I said, "No, I can't really drive you. I got it. I got a contract I have to go take care of, which is worth about 20 grand to me. So you want to give me 20 grand? I'll drive back. I'll get the man who normally drives your mother and I." Well, he hated my father, but liked my mother a lot. So that's why he would drive him back and forth from Florida to North Carolina. And, he calls him up, and the guy goes, "No, I'm not going to drop everything for you. So I'll pay you whatever you want." And the guy goes, "I want $20,000. And I said, "Dad, let me just take you to the airport, put you on the airplane. We call them up. Some cute girl will put you in a wheelchair and roll you onto the airplane and take good care of you, and you'll be in New Jersey within 2 hours. Whereas if you have that guy or me drive you, you're going to have 3 days on the road in motels." No. So he does. I put him on the airplane. He goes there. And I said, "Listen, this is what you got to do." So my sister had like 6 kids, and they all had 6 kids. And over that 20-something years, he was horrible to all of them. He traumatized them all. So I said, "You go back there and be your best self, your really good self. And you get kumbaya with that whole family, and you can do it. You're a charming guy. So just be your charming self and don't be that asshole, and then die. Just look forward to dying. Don't get your blood changed and you'll be dead." So put him on the airplane. He went there and he did exactly that. He lived for pretty much. He died the day after the Super Bowl, and it was like his last meal. They had, beef Wellington. They had the gigantic shrimp. They had all the things he loved, right? And he ate, and that's probably one of the things that killed him, because the next morning he was like, and my sister came down, and she called up the hospice nurse, and the hospice nurse came, and put the blood pressure cuff on him, and he killed. She didn't do anything other than that, and he died. And because he, the last 15 years of his life, he had no control of his colon, and he would just evacuate like boom, right? And no, we were. He was thrown out of every Walmart's because he would wear these shorts, and he would just kind of move in a certain way, and the crap would fly out the leg of his shorts and not go down his leg, but would go all over the Walmart's and smell like you couldn't believe. And after he did that 5 or 6 times, and that, all of the Walmarts on that side of Florida, from Melbourne down to Miami, they had like a picture of his thing. And the guy, the greeter, excuse me, sir, you're not allowed in here. Right? And that was my dad, you know. On a certain level, he just thought about himself. And if he wanted to crap, he would crap right there, right? Not a problem. Anyway, so his colon was not, so he ate all of this stuff the night before he dies. And so he's got, his whole colon full of, and he they turned him over to the side, the nurse turned him over to the side, and he shot like 50 gallons worth of diarrhea all over my sister's dining room wall. And she had that really wallpaper that has, felty kind of patterns on it. And they basically had to board the place up and nuke it and rebuild it. And my father, he kept telling us, oh, when I die, you'll all be millionaires. Well, when he died in '09, and he lost more than half of his net worth in the '08 crash. And then and his real value was that he had a house in Florida and a house in North Carolina. And in '07, I got rid of everything I had real estate-wise. I suggested my dad do this. Oh, you don't know what you're talking about. And so in '06, almost '07, he was offered $3 million for his North Carolina. And both these houses were gigantic houses. Just him and my mom didn't need it. And I said, you need to just, pare down and get rid of everything and sell all your stock, because that's what I did. And so when he died, he went from probably having, I don't know, $8 or $9 million to having, including his real estate, maybe $240,000. And that did more to crush him than almost my mother's death. So my sisters were waiting for the paycheck, and my older sister should have known. She was the power of attorney, but I knew exactly what was going on with my dad because I took care of him for 28 years. And so my sisters wanted the money right away. So I said, no, we need to just hold on to this real estate, and it'll come back. Give it 2 or 3 or 4 years, and we'll get at least $1 million for all of this. Now, the house in Florida, which somebody wanted to give him $400,000, we sold it at auction for $38,000, split 3 ways, right? And the house in North Carolina almost didn't sell. I had to go, because I was there, I had to go, get a person to buy it. And they really wanted it, and so we kind of cleaned it up, and so they paid us not what it was worth, not $3 million, but gave us a few $100,000. So Right. And there's a great, I've been doing that my life in some way or another, but I don't do it in just one way. I do it in many ways, right? That's your sensei, Al Bob. And, yep, a massive problem with, you know, I live on basically $300 a month, give or take, and I live like a millionaire, because it's how I feel about myself, my self-worth, and that, you know, I always have that $10 in my pocket. When I need something and I have nobody whatsoever, I just kind of rummage around in my car, and whatever I need is magically in my car. I have a magic car because I've been living in it so long that it's kind of in there. So that's good. This is kind of the conversation I wanted to have when I call this, what does it mean to love someone? What is love? Right? And it's none of the things that they make songs about or movies about or even write about. Maybe poetry and maybe theater, because both of those are sacred sacraments. Yes, to give selflessly. Yeah, exactly. And in that process, part of that process of giving selflessly basically gives you protection. Yeah, that's what we are. And so when you're taking care of someone, you're also taking care of yourself. And you never, with my parents, in those 28 years, only once did I let my father stab me in the back, because I knew that he was a scumbag. And so I was pretty good at deflecting the blade. But one time, so when you're selflessly taking care of people, you're always protected. Same thing with, I worked in a group home of people who were, you know, mostly, they all had MS and, muscle disorder, diseases like that, but it also affected their brain. So, and they pretty much all had gotten into that thing by being in the military and killing a lot of people and drinking way too much and doing drugs, and basically where they were in was, their version of hell slash purgatory for all of those things that they did. And I took, because of my father's military connections and my knowing a lot of people in the military, and I'd worked at the VA in the 60s, and that's how I got into being the doctor. I treated everybody like a human being. I went out of my way to take them places, to have a good time, not to just be stuck in their bed. That we had a van, so I would get them all in the van and take them to the mall, and we'd go see movies and stuff like that. And it was a lot of work for me, because it was the weekends and I was the only guy there. And I took care of there was between 8 and 13 people in the house at any given time. And they were, by the second weekend I was there, they were like little puppy dogs. They were just because everybody else treated them like crap, like they weren't even human, and, wouldn't change them, wouldn't clean them, kept them in their beds, kept them watching TV, gave them just potato chips, and, so they were constipated, like, So, I get vegetables and fish, because I had a good chunk of the food budget of that place, and I would buy, and the people who worked there during the week would let me do the shopping, because I would get all this food and whatever really good food that those guys would eat, and it would only, I would go online Friday at 3 p.m. and I would go offline Monday at 10 a.m. So I was there from 3 Friday to 10 a.m. Monday. And by law, there were supposed to be 3 people there, but they didn't. They couldn't get anybody to work there at the weekend. So when I was at school, this was a job that I got through school, and they paid me $500 cash to do that. So it was, it was nice getting that kind of cash every freaking week, and it was off the books, and I didn't exist. That was the other thing, because I was taking really good care of them, but the protocol was there had to be 3 people there, there had to be this, had to be that, and these guys lied about everything, the HMO, and that's where I learned about HMOs. And HMOs are just there to make money, not to give good care. But that's where I learned about, so I really cared about these folks and took really good care of them. And because of that, I was protected, meaning I never hurt myself there. And sometimes these guys would go off, they would, if they could have moved around, they would have killed everyone. I mean, they had some real sociopathic tendencies. But by my treating them like a human being, an individual, by being there for them, mostly they never went that way. But one time we went out to a mall, and most of them couldn't control their bladders or their colons, so they wore diapers. And we were in the mall, and I kind of had them all pushing each other. And it was in the back pushing like 6 wheelchaired guys, and then there were 4 guys kind of stumbling along with walkers, and people started to make fun of them. And it was the most amazing thing. They all had, shit in their diapers, and they all stuck their hands down their pants and grabbed a handful of shit and started throwing it at all the people, all the mass consumers. I didn't stop them. I just let them do it until they ran out of shit. And the whole section of the mall was covered in shit, the walls, the ceiling, about 80 people, I got it straight in their face. It was all over the floor. People were, woo! Of course we were escorted out of there, but this one guy who was, a mall cop, the sergeant, there were 3 of them escorting us out, and they were amazingly nice. Because the sergeant guy said to me, this is how those people treat us. And that's why it got so carried out. I mean, we were watching you guys on the CCT and in the main control, and we just stayed there and watched you, these guys throw, cover everyone in shit. We were enjoying it, and we say thank you. And they were really, really nice, putting the guys back in the van and saying, you need any help back at the ranch, we'll come back there. And I did, yeah, I appreciate that. So they drove back in their van, and they took a couple of the guys so nobody would have to be squished into our little van. And of course, we were never allowed back in that mall or any of the other malls in that valley. But it gave those guys such a sense of empowerment that I didn't, try to get up and stop them. I just kind of stepped back so I wouldn't be in the line of fire. And that's what I'm talking about. So instead of us all ending in jail or, really bad things happening, no. As my teacher would say, all things are as they should be. And they were just that in that mall on that day, right? And it was Christmas time, and Santa got plastered with diarrhea too. So, and the guys, they just made sure they didn't hit the pretty elves. So, so here it is. 55 minutes and 10 seconds. So I'm going to say goodnight to y'all, and I'll see you tonight, 7 p.m., right? When it hits 55. And let's see how more cadre can get on the line, and how many more thumbs up? How about thumbing up and liking the stuff? And go back and look at, I went back and taken a good look at all past ones. They're all pretty good. Go way back to the very beginning and watch the ones in the deep green. And, go pick out your favorites. Go, put it on your screen, on your laptop, and do a science fiction 6,000, and talk about the video with your face and with my face and the screen in the back. Let's get a little bit creative here. Let's start stepping up, stepping out, making a difference across the planet. That's what the cadre is here for. That's what the chorus. I want to hear your voices. I love hearing your voices in the chats. They're always great. And I love when we do our going into state. Last night's was great. Any of you guys part of that where I showed everyone, male and female, that everyone's a woman. We all start out as women. And women cannot blame men for being patriarchal because their mothers bring them up to be that way. I didn't be that way because I had a grandma and a mom who wouldn't let me be that way, right? And I had every woman I was involved with didn't let me be that way. Well, they wouldn't have been with me unless I was me. I was the first off. And then they didn't respond to me like they responded to other men. I was their most significant other at that moment, and they knew that. We were living moment to moment, not like, my twin flame, I'll be with you forever. No, it worked out that way. There were a lot of women, my two wives, I spent 8 or so years with both of them, so because we lived minute to minute. And my first wife, when it was obviously that we weren't, doing that, we decided to go our separate ways in a very, amenable way, and I didn't like, I'm missing her so much. No, what I do is remember all the great times we had together. That's all I remember are those great moments, not anything else. She's not like, no one's like her. And then my second wife, who a lot of, people, you'll never be able to be with another person. No, I can be with other people, plus they're different than my second wife, right? And I had, my memories of her are the fondest, and I still talk to her. She's dead, and I talk to her, she's got a little part of my heart. She's got like a little apartment there, right? And everyone else in my life that I've loved, they all have little apartments in my heart. So, and that's what love is. Not wanting to hold on, but just appreciating, being selfless and gratitude and grace. That's what it's about. So that's, John asked me, you're looking a little down today. No, I'm talking slow and soft because, it hurts my mouth if I get too animated. So, no, I never really feel disappointed now. I can be in situations where, not my doing, but a person kind of goes off the hook and is mean and crass and sour and energetically just spitting out vile. Well, that's not too fun to be around. But if it gets to a point where I'll just get in my car and drive away, and that's the bottom line, And so I have control of that. Now, when I drive away from a warm, secure place, and I drive into the unknown, don't have any idea what it is. So But that's what's exciting about life. And every time I do that, the universe takes care of me and puts me in a more interesting place than that crass, stinky place, that I just left. Those moments in between with your heart and others is actual reality. Yep, exactement. Yep, infinity. So it's 1 hour and 55 seconds. So again, see you tonight at 7, and I will think up another interesting place to go. But I thought going to the island of the Amazons last night was quite interesting. I really like that. And so I'll think of something else. But it usually comes to mind, And so we'll chat a little, once 7 o'clock rolls around and I start telling a story or talk about something, and people drop in, I will figure out where we're going to go. So I'll call y'all. You stay well, and I love you all. And here it is, 1 hour, 1 minute, and 1 second.